All right. Good morning, everyone. How are you all doing this morning? Good. It's a pleasure to welcome you this morning to the 11th Annual EPIC Symposium. My name is Fritz Fu, and I supervise outreach and engagement in our Energy Research and Development Division here at the Energy Commission. I'm thrilled to be returning as your MC, as well as hosting this event once again in our beautiful California Natural Resources Agency building. For those of you new to EPIC, or the Electric Program Investment Charge, it is a ratepayer-funded energy research, development, and demonstration program overseen by the California Public Utilities Commission, with the California Energy Commission as one of 4 administrators alongside the state's 3 largest electric investor-owned utilities: Southern California Edison, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, and San Diego Gas and Electric Company. My team and I have been working the past several months to put on this event, which is a huge undertaking, but it is such an accomplishment to bring everyone here today, especially in a time where building partnerships, exchanging ideas is ever more important. And I'd also like to take a time this morning to thank our generous sponsor, John Bonanno from Vector. They provided the coffee, morning, and pastries, and that is definitely a great way to start the morning on a packed, full agenda like today. We're joined by many of you in person, as well as over 400 people online on Zoom. And I wanted to take a quick second to recognize those folks. Welcome to our online attendees. We're thrilled to have you. And before I turn it over to Chair David Hochschild, I wanted to mention, we are excited to bring together a really diverse audience of policymakers, labor, workforce development, industry representatives, researchers, entrepreneurs, and others to learn about the projects funded by the EPIC program and how they are bringing benefits to electricity ratepayers and all Californians every day in the forms of improved energy affordability, safety, reliability, resilience, better environmental outcomes, and more. As an icebreaker this morning, before one more additional note, we'd like to conduct 2 quick audience polls to get a sense of who is joining us today. So if you could please bring out your smartphone and/or your laptop and scan the QR code, or join menti.com and type in that code there, 9417-7637. This is available to our in-person as well as online audiences. So the first question that we have for today, is, have you attended the EPIC Symposium before? We are in its 11th year, so hopefully you've been to at least one. Wow, a lot of first timers here. That's wonderful. 5 times. Those are likely some of our EPIC grant recipients who have been great partners. We'll give it another maybe 15, 20 seconds just to see. Awesome. Well, that is terrific. As EPIC begins to look ahead at the next 5 years of the EPIC 5 investment cycle, it's very exciting to see a lot of new folks learning about the program and also a lot of returning faces as well. And for our second quick icebreaker this morning, we'd like to ask a more fun question. What is your favorite energy themed song? I know this one's a little tricky, but my example for this is Walking on Sunshine. So if you have a favorite energy themed song, feel free to rack your brain for a moment and see if we get any to start the day. Give it another 15, 20 minutes. I like some of the electric slide. Here Comes the Sun. That's a great one. Good day, sunshine. I love it. Beautiful day. Awesome. Well, my hope is throughout the day that you all will continue to make new connections by asking big and small questions like to get to know each other. And now, the last set of housekeeping items. Restrooms are immediately outside of the auditorium to your right, as well as by the cafeteria area. For lunch, we have some on-site options as well as off-site options. I'll go over more of those later in the day. And also, we have plenty of seating within the cafeteria and outside the building as well. So it'll be a great chance to network during the technology showcase as well as the lunch. And now finally, I'd like to introduce CEC Chair David Hochschild to provide some opening remarks.
So I'm going to be performing Start Me Up. And good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm David Hochschild, Chair of the California Energy Commission. Just by way of introduction, I want to just express my gratitude to be joined here by Commissioner Karen Douglas of the PUC, who's been a great partner and friend of the Energy Commission for many years, and I'll be introducing her in a few minutes, and Senator Josh Becker, who chairs the Senate Energy Committee. And as I think many of you know, we just finished the legislative session, and it really was one of the most fruitful and productive energy and climate sessions we've ever had. We extended the cap and trade program another 20 years. Yeah, somebody got, let's give that a round of applause. And we're going to be moving towards, because of Senator Becker's leadership, a regional grid, which is going to drive electric prices down and improve decarbonization and reliability, among many other accomplishments. So I just wanted to give you and your colleagues a big round of applause. So thank you for that. So California is fortunate to have the EPIC program. This is, in my view, the single best clean energy research and development program in the world. And I say that as I have visited Germany and Japan and China and Australia and seen all the other programs. What we're doing here and the attunement to the market opportunities is second to none. I'm incredibly proud of the team. I just want to ask all of the staff from the EPIC program and ERGD to just please stand for a second so we can thank you guys. Let's give them a big round of applause. So we're working to drive California to 100% clean energy future. The progress we're making is amazing. We've hit 100% clean energy on the first 217 days out of the first 243 days of 2025, 9 out of 10 days for a period of the day. We're hitting that in July. The CAISO grid operated for an average of 6.5 hours on 100% clean energy. Over there, someone's got the like, yeah, right. And we're getting there. So we're more than 2/3 clean power on the grid, and we're extending the reach of this clean electricity in ways that we never imagined. We went from 1% of new construction being all electric a decade ago. Now it's over 80%. We have more EV charging infrastructure than we have gasoline nozzles in California. And we're seeing really creative solutions emerging across the state, and especially with energy storage. I just want to lift out one of the projects we just funded about a month ago, is creating the first ever California battery hub to focus on advanced lithium, improving energy density and driving costs down and improving safety. And so the EPIC program has been at the forefront of all this stuff. And really is driving the economy of the future. California is the sort of postcard from the future for the rest of the country. And we have to remember that the first rooftop solar system in the world was here. The first utility scale solar system in the world was here. First terrestrial wind project, first energy storage system, first electric vehicle, first energy codes and standards, all here. And the investment in innovation has made that possible. And so we are the destination state for clean tech investment. I spent yesterday with Governor Newsom in San Francisco, and actually the Princess of Belgium, who came with a delegation of 500 people from Belgium, really to dig into our innovation economy. And they're coming here because this is where it happens. And we do know something in this state about growing industries. 6 of the 10 biggest companies in the world, most valuable companies in the world, were born here in California. And so the seeds that are getting planted here can really make a big impact. And I think we should all go into this next chapter, despite the challenges of the moment, but we should go into this next chapter with an expansive sense of possibility about the change that we can create in our time. And as we do that, as we drive clean energy mainstream, lifting up equity along the way and supporting the communities that have had to bear the heaviest burdens of pollution is fundamental to the strategy. And so we're doing what do we know? Over 60% of our projects in the EPIC program for clean energy demonstration project are going into low-income and disadvantaged communities. And there's so much progress happening around the state. I was fortunate to visit Harbinger last week, which is an amazing company, 500 employees, raised $350 million doing electric chassis for class 4, 5, and 6 trucks. And just this summer, they hit cost parity with no incentives with a conventional ICE vehicle chassis and are scaling fast and expanding. And so we have an incredible ecosystem here. It wouldn't be possible without the EPIC program. And in closing, I wanted to just highlight one key piece of the work, which Commissioner Douglas really played an instrumental role in early on when she was a commissioner here at the Energy Commission, which is around tribes. So we have now funded not just through EPIC, but through EPIC and other programs, $130 million for 35 California Native American tribes. We have 109 federally recognized Native American tribes to do tribal energy sovereignty projects. So solar battery, microgrid, EV charging. And we have a short video to share about really our first tribal energy project. So let's roll that now.
How can a single investment help launch a California tribal community's journey towards energy sovereignty?
Thanks to the California Energy Commission and a generous grant through the EPIC program, we were able to commission the first microgrid. We believe it was the first tribal microgrid behind the meter in the state of California and perhaps across the nation.
The Blue Lake Rancheria microgrid, combining solar and battery energy storage to provide reliable, life-saving power in a part of California prone to multiple wildfire and storm outages every year, serving as a community refuge in disasters that leave the rest of the region in the dark. The Blue Lake Rancheria, lighting the way for energy sovereignty, resiliency, and reliability. Another epic success story, the nation's leading energy research and development program.
Percent of that comes from energy use.
So actually,
But
so
we're
my
very motivated
first
to
trip to visit a
build
California Native American
our
tribe on one of these projects was with Commissioner Douglas, who was a
Well,
colleague.
energy is their second largest cost.
Cut the, there we go, thank you. So Commissioner Douglas was a commissioner for many years here at the Energy Commission, former chair of the Energy Commission, and really did a lot of the seed planting for some of these tribal projects. She then went to serve as energy advisor to Governor Newsom, and now has been for the last few years at the California Public Utilities Commission, helping to lead on many of these things. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Commissioner Karen Douglas.
Thank you so much, Chair Hochschild. It's always really nice for me to come here, and after about 14 years on the Energy Commission, it always feels like, coming back to a lot of familiar faces, and so it's very nice to be here and to have the opportunity to help open this EPIC symposium. And I did not know that we were doing our favorite energy songs. It's probably just as well. Chair Hochschild and I have occasionally done an ukulele performance, but we didn't bring it today, and it's just as well. So you've all been saved from that. And I'm really excited to be here and I'm really looking forward to a content-filled day as we move forward with the symposium agenda. The symposium is going to feature sessions looking at public funding, critical storage capacity, accelerating the commercialization of clean tech, and more. There are a number of really substantive breakout sessions as well, looking at advancing EV charging, decarbonizing the large building sector, optimizing grid system planning, and others. And just a little on the history of the EPIC program. It was established by the CPUC in 2011 to fund energy innovation in 3 areas: applied research and development, technology demonstration and deployment, and market facilitation. Subsequently, the CPUC adopted a mission statement and guiding principles for EPIC in 2021, and has gone through a public workshop process to collectively derive strategic goals and objectives for the program in 2023. Most recently in 2024, the CPUC adopted the 5 strategic goals of transportation electrification, distributed energy resource integration, building decarbonization, achieving net zero carbon in coordination with gas, and adaptation. This symposium is a really great opportunity to reflect on what's been done in this program and what's been achieved so far. I also have fond memories of visiting Blue Lake Rancheria and actually seeing, I remember holding a golden shovel for the groundbreaking of the first microgrid project there. And it's really exciting to see what Blue Lake Rancheria has been able to achieve over the years. In any case, it's a great opportunity both to reflect on what's been achieved and also to look forward at California's evolving electricity and gas system in the context of our climate goals and our policy objectives as we enter into the 5th cycle of the EPIC program. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those introductory remarks, Chair Hochschild and Commissioner Douglas. I'd like to now introduce our panelists for our first opening morning plenary, a living room chat entitled What's Next for EPIC? So we're going to have the panelists come to the stage, please.
There we go. Well, welcome everybody to this esteemed morning panel. I introduced earlier Senator Becker, but I'll just say a little bit more about him. He's been a climate champion for many moons. I think we met, was it the Prop 23 campaign, maybe before that, 15 years ago or so, and been involved in Silicon Valley and the clean tech community for many, many years, and a big champion of all of you and the innovation sector. Commissioner Douglas, we spoke about earlier, and great to have you back. Mike Delaney is, Anna first, is co-founder and executive director of a new group, which I'll let you share a little bit about, which is doing some good stuff. But he spent the last 4 years with Jigar Shah at the U.S. Department of Energy loan program and pushed out really the biggest tranche of loans that program has seen, and has been before that in the U.S. Senate for a number of years as well. And then Mike Delaney is Vice President of Utility Partnerships and Innovation at PG&E, and we serve together on the Heat Pump Partnership Board and a few others. So great to have you. So let me just kind of open it up. We're at a a pretty unique moment right now where there's some considerable degree of arson being committed against clean energy programs and a pretty radical assault, I would say, particularly on solar and wind. But at the same time, the energy transition, it's very clear, can't be stopped. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. And there's, still tremendous cost reduction happening and innovation happening. Can I just ask each of the panelists to just share at a high level your thoughts on the role of this program, the EPIC program, and sort of what's needed at this moment for our state and our country? And starting with you, Senator Becker.
Sure. How's it going today?
Good.
It's doing pretty good, especially if I get up at 6 a.m. to come here. I'm usually not too early morning person. But when I hear, actually, honestly, when I hear our chair talk about our progress, it always gets me fired up. He always leaves me optimistic and enthusiastic, and he put on an incredible program at Climate Week, the Electricity Innovation Awards. He's always highlighting our progress, and there is tremendous progress despite these times. And here in California, certainly some of that progress is attributed to the EPIC program. I come from the early stage technology sector. I had my own early stage venture fund, worked in the policy on clean energy for a long time, but I know the power of entrepreneurship and why we need it, because we are making tremendous progress, and solar and wind and these technologies are the cheapest to deploy at scale today. But we have many challenges to get to net zero. It's not just about those big scale technologies. It's about transitioning of our homes, all of our office buildings. It's, of course, our fleets. It's all of our industrial, we're about, large percent of our emissions where we've made, very, very little progress. All those pieces are necessary to get to net zero. And that's where this is helpful, because we need programs like EPIC to come up with those, support those entrepreneurs working on those innovations that are going to get us to scale and get us to affordability. I'm sure we'll talk about affordability later. But, California's role is in many ways not just proving that we can do it with the stats that you mentioned earlier, but also showing how to do it and creating that lab of innovation then for the rest of the world so we can scale these technologies. So it's important to fund innovation, because we're not going to be able to make electricity more affordable unless we find solutions to enable demand flexibility and avoid overbuilding the grid to handle the most extreme peaks. We're not going to get to 24/7 clean energy unless we come up with new ideas and invest in supporting emerging clean, firm technologies like long duration storage, enhanced geothermal, even next generation nuclear. We're not going to be able to electrify homes and office buildings unless we find ways to make it much easier and cheaper to retrofit new appliances in these buildings and replace them and avoid costly utility service upgrades whenever possible. And we're not going to be able to electrify some of these hardest to use case, hardest to solve use cases, like I mentioned with industrial loads, without supporting innovation and commercialization of high temperature heating solutions like thermal storage and industrial heat pumps. So we have the goals in place here, and we have many of the pieces, but we need the EPIC program to come up and fill those gaps to get us to scale and get us to affordability.
Great. Commissioner?
Thank you. And it's really great to start this with a discussion of the role of publicly funded research. Obviously, it's really essential, as Senator Becker was discussing, to support the state's policy goals with policy relevant research, and policy relevant research that has benefits that are tangible and that help move us forward towards achieving those goals. And I would add a couple factors that always has to be looked at. What are the gaps? What's the private market doing already? And how do we fill in with publicly funded research? And then, especially given that this is a ratepayer funded program, there's that accountability at the end to bring this back to public benefits, including benefits to ratepayers. So one of the points, the overall point really of publicly funded research is finding ways to advance the state's goals and support the public interest in how they are implemented and how those goals are achieved. And so this is one of the really important opportunities that we have in front of us with the EPIC program, is to look at those questions. How do we meet the state's goals? How do we advance the technology development and deployment that we need, with consideration for how those advancements are going to play out in the context of considering equity, considering the involvement of tribes and disadvantaged communities in that work, and considering overall how the developments benefit ratepayers. And so with the ratepayer nature of the program, it's just another layer of opportunity here that we're really excited to be working on with the CEC and with the other EPIC administrators.
Yeah, so I would look at this from, partially state and federal perspective. So one of the things that we learned at DOE was there were all these technologies that were ready to deploy or were vetted, but nobody in the marketplace really wanted to finance them, right? So you would think that as soon as something's ready, someone would be ready to pay for it, but that's not how it works. So I think the EPIC program, especially with a lot of the federal demonstrations receding, has an opportunity to sort of be that proof point on the development and demonstration front that's going to be missing. Now, I think that can help the state of California because I think even in California, there are technologies that are readily available and present that will reduce costs in the next 18 to 24 months. But there still seems to be some hesitation to actually deploy that technology at mass scale. And I can go into some specifics. I think Senator Becker mentioned load flexibility. I think that's probably one of the biggest opportunities in the short run to reduce costs, but there is still some hesitation. And I think this program can really lead the way in continuing to demonstrate how it's effective, reliable, and can reduce costs. So I think there's a huge role for this, both with federal recession of leadership and with trying to help the state meet its goals for cost reductions.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
It's always tough to go last in these. So most of what's been said, totally there. What I would add to this is just why do we still need EPIC? It's because we're not done yet. So we still have work to do to get to 100% clean energy and do it in a way where we drive down rates. And if I just take a minute on our department, so utility partnerships and innovation in PG&E, we do three big things. We focus on accelerating electrification. So we have our EV team building electrification efficiency. That's all about decarbonizing while driving rates down. We have the load flexibility group, load management. And so again, that's about unleashing the full potential of our system and doing it in a way by we're interacting with the edge of the grid to drive costs down. And then the innovation piece is critical because we've identified gaps. Like there are places where we're not there yet. And so the innovation work that we have is all about finding ways to do things better, faster, cheaper in service of driving towards 100% clean energy and doing it where we drive rates down.
Great, thank you. So one of the things that it's really clear we need to do as we are electrifying across the state is to make everything that connects to the grid a good citizen of the grid. And there is just a huge number of things electrifying now that we didn't think were possible. We're funding the first battery electric ferries in North America here in San Francisco Bay. They're being built now in Washington State. Caltrain just electrified, connecting Silicon Valley to San Francisco. New construction's electrifying. We got a company in Richmond, Veridi, that's doing all electric construction equipment. We got a company in Livermore doing, all electric tractors and so on and so forth. And so making these things, nimble and responsive to the grid is critical so that we can keep costs down. I wonder if I could just ask each of you, when you look out at the innovation space with that in mind, what do you find the most exciting when you think about the innovations that are underway now and that are needed looking ahead, down the road, the next 5-10 years? What are the innovations in that context that kind of excite you and interest you the most?
Well, reasons I'm excited to be in this room is because look, when I was in early stage venture, the most exciting thing for me and the thing I got the most joy out of was meeting with entrepreneurs every day. And that was it. That was what kind of kept me motivated. Regardless of the time of year, regardless of the economic cycle, every day I'd be meeting with new entrepreneurs who have exciting ideas, who found a gap in the marketplace, who found something that doesn't exist, or find something that they think they can do better, faster, cheaper to a significant enough extent to get a market adoption. So that's what's exciting. And that's what's exciting about being in this room is that, you are thinking about ideas, you're working on ideas, for things that don't exist yet, right? Or things that are going to fill one of these gaps in the marketplace. So, I won't kind of repeat myself because I went through in the last question, a lot of areas where we still need technologies, right? We still need new technologies and new business models as well around that, in the load flexibility, in the home retrofit, in the industrial space. So really, honestly, it's all of those for me because it's just, sometimes in clean energy, everyone's looking for that one silver bullet, and we know there's not that one silver bullet, right? It's literally hundreds of new technologies across all these different areas are going to get us there. And yeah, in some ways, when you talk about how long we've known each other, we're think even where we are today versus where we were 5 years ago, it's really quite extraordinary, the progress we've made. On the other hand, we know we have to, double, triple that, move even faster and faster to, stem the effects of climate change. So really, it's gone across the board for me with all those areas.
Commissioner, innovations that excite you?
In some ways, I have a similar response. I remember well, and when we were here for the Energy Commission's anniversary the other day, the 50th, right? We were talking about this, when you go back to some of the earlier years that I had on the CEC, we really didn't know how everything was going to come together, even for a 33% RPS. And that was risky because when you are running 33% of your system on intermittent resources, things have to change and everything has to change. And everything from your technology mix to your planning processes to how you think about procurement, everything has to change. And technology advancement was needed, and we didn't necessarily know where it was coming from. And public research was not the whole answer, but public research helped us in that way forward. And of course, we're now in a system that reaches 100% with some regularity, at least for some parts of the day. And we've made huge advancements. And so sitting here today and looking at the challenges in front of us and looking at the questions in front of us, how can we be more efficient? How can we take advantage of demand side and customer side opportunities while still preserving the affordable, effective grid with universal service that is the foundation of our electricity system and part of something that we need for all Californians? How do we take advantage of these exciting opportunities in a way that people are going to be really happy with and happy living with as we move forward? And so none of us know all of the answers. We know parts of the answers and we know parts of the questions and parts of the challenges. And so it's really this process of working together through publicly funded research and also through the many different policies and proceedings from the legislative side to the administrative side, and that are going to get us there. And I think we are going to get there. And I think this research component is an exciting part of that trajectory that we've been on.
Well said. Arnaud?
I'm going to try and answer your question directly. What I'm most excited about are those Archer flying taxis. Those are awesome. I mean, you can get from any part of LA to another part of LA, and I'm really hoping that pans out in the next 8 years. In terms of, thinking a little bit deeper about it, I think back to everything that we did at DOE, and we tried to be technology neutral, and I don't think there's a specific technology that saves things. I think we got to think about time in terms of we have this demand cycle of power that's needed in this country immediately. We have time to fight the climate crisis, not much of it. So when we looked at all the technologies, like advanced nuclear is still half decade out. A lot of the stuff that we're working on geothermal is still probably half decade out. Being able to just get power online is a half decade out. Even if you didn't want to be clean and just put gas turbines on, you're looking at 6 years to get a gas turbine. So we need capacity today, right? So one of the things I'm most excited about, and I promise I'm not chilling for you, David, here and the CEC, is the load flexibility target that you guys put in place years ago. And there was a Kavala study that came out last year that showed that if you doubled that target from 3.5 to 7 gigawatts, you would save $12 billion, right? And if you look into that study, because it's a feeder analysis, it will not only tell you that there's an overall savings, but there are specific ways to get more savings. So urban feeders give you 25 to 50% more savings, because deferring those distribution lines are going to have more savings because building those are more expensive, right? So any technology that Epic here is promoting that can do distribution deferral in an urban feeder, and there's plenty of those. We can start with electric vehicles, we can move on to distributed batteries, and there's tons of other things, thermostats, can help this state right now, both in terms of meeting its climate targets and in terms of bringing down costs. And I think everyone, if you look nationally, state by state, bringing down costs is the number one thing. If you look at the governor's race in New Jersey, the cost of energy is a top 3 issue. There are Twitter wars going on back and forth, and there are lies being spread that shutting down gas plants are the reason why rates are going up. And we all know that's not true. So I think we need to do our part and, fight the climate crisis, and bring down these costs. And I think the CEC has positioned the state to do that.
Very well said. Mike?
Great. I love the tee up for the question of good grid citizens and how can we unlock more flexibility there or do things. And I'll double click a little bit even more into flexibility here. So one of the things that we're focused on is you think about something like the avoided cost calculator. That's a good first step. What we need to go then from there is to figure out not just quantifying what the theoretical value is from a study or for something else, but how do we actually realize that value? And so one of the areas that I'm most excited about is Epic 4.02 that we're doing. And this is getting at a specific challenge that customers have, and then also trying to get at the issue of deferring service transformer upgrades. So this is for electrification that's occurring. There's a couple different ways we're looking at it, but we're using next generation AMI meters to then help a customer avoid a panel upgrade. So if you're electrifying vehicles, electrifying your home, often the electrician will say, hey, you got to upgrade. If you have a 100 amp service panel, you're going to need more. So that right there costs you thousands of dollars and can also cost you time if then we do an analysis on our side and say we have to upgrade that service transformer. So instead, we're looking to avoid that whole thing by using technology to dynamically limit just a few hours a year and to manage it. And one is that we found that customers seem okay with it. It seems like this is going to work. But then on the second side is we're figuring out ways to do this in a way where we can truly avoid on the grid side those investments in the service transformer for as long as possible. And so that's one that I'm excited about. It's one that's, we can spend $100 million and save a couple billion, which that like just speaks to me right there. It's like clean energy plus cost savings. That's the way we're going to reduce rates.
Well, I want to, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so just jump on there's avoiding these costly service upgrades. And so it's good to see the focus there. I had a bill this year that the governor vetoed, obviously didn't think was necessary. So I look forward to conversations with the PUC starting as soon as possible to really kind of make sure we are aligned on that as policymakers and how we create that right framework to make sure we hit that load flexibility target that you mentioned. The second piece again is I just want to touch again on this home retrofit piece because thank you. In the Bay Area, we now have rules about switching over kind of rules around new appliances starting in 2028. And the CCO has already done a lot of work on these issues, supporting the 120 volt water heaters that can be plugged into wall socket to avoid costly upgrades and cooktops with embedded batteries to allow similarly quick installation. So we really need these kinds of innovations to transition existing buildings and the building codes are doing a great job for the new construction, but we need a whole bunch of new technologies like those that the CC is supporting to support this transition in existing buildings.
Great. Well, just building on that, I want to share just two quick stories from my household, because we just got rid of our last gas appliance. We got one of those copper stoves with the battery built in. And so PG is coming out to remove my gas meter next month. And another funny thing is my kid, who's now 17, she's been driving for a couple of years. We have an electric car, and then I have an older van, and she wanted to borrow the van, but she said, "Dad, I'm a little nervous." I said, "Why?" She said, "I don't know how to use a gas pump." Which I loved. So, I wanted to just build on the conversation about affordability for a moment. You know, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab just came out with a really landmark study looking at rates across the country. And they dug into California, and what they found is the top two drivers of rate increases. Number one is wildfire, and number two is inflation on distribution system costs. So wildfires are adding, I think it was 4.3 cents a kilowatt hour over the last couple of years. And so you have this dynamic where climate change is making it harder to fight climate change, because that makes the value proposition of an electric heat pump or electric vehicle, these other things that we want to electrify, harder. And so it has kind of raised the bar, the challenge we got to overcome. At the same time, there is amazing innovation happening. One of the companies that's been funded is Gradient, which is the first electric heat pump that can be self-installed. So for tenants, you put it on a windowsill, one unit outside, one unit inside, and the installation cost can be 40% of the project cost, and so that's a huge savings. But how do you see innovation best supporting affordability? And maybe, Mike, let's start with you this time.
Yeah. So this is something I tell my team all the time. It's not innovation if it just costs more. So there are ways that we can spend more money on technology, and you're just adding more features, doing things. And so what we focus on, and what we've focused our innovation work on, is finding ways to do both. So you make it better, faster, cheaper, all at the same time. For us, there's a couple different things there. One is we've published, and it's out there for everybody to see, an R&D strategy report. You can see what are the biggest challenges that we're focused on. And then with the innovation work itself, the way that we describe it and think about it is like a venture capitalist. So we're making bets into the future. They're risky. We don't always know that they're going to work out, but we want to make sure that they're worthwhile. And so I challenge the team to focus on 10x returns. But 10x returns isn't about making money. It's about providing returns back to our customers. So for every dollar that they're investing into innovation for us, we're seeking to find those solutions that can drive $10 of rate savings for them. So that's what we're looking for, are those things that are scalable, repeatable, and can help both decarbonize while driving prices down.
Arnaud?
Yeah, so I think what we need is just a group change in mindset, and I think we've operated under one framework for 3 or 4 decades, mostly because demand remained flat, and I think we need to sort of operate in a new framework. Let me explain what I'm saying in a couple of ways. One is, I think part of our problem is we don't have necessarily the best incentive structure in place for utilities to procure load flexibility. And I think that's something that we need to figure out. We need to work with the utilities and the Public Utilities Commission to make that happen. And there have been models in the past that work, but until we have that structure in place, it's going to be hard to sort of get the end result payments into this type of infrastructure. The second thing is, I think we need to look under the hood and tell us and figure out what's going on in the distribution system specifically. Because I think, you cited that LBNL study. What happens is a lot of the wildfire costs are in the distribution rate itself. And there's also these all other distribution rate increases that have come from just the fact that, this is a nationwide problem, not a California problem. Distribution systems haven't really been upgraded over the past few decades. From a just like investing in CapEx perspective. They've been expanded, but not necessarily upgraded. So I think what we need to do is figure out what's going on within that distribution rate, because for that is the rate increase, but part of that is wildfire and part of that is other stuff that's going on. So I don't know if I answered your question, David, but that's what I'm thinking.
I just wanted to add maybe a few thoughts to this discussion. Technology advances that help us scale, help us deploy new technologies, help us solve problems in the electricity system more broadly. And all of that has the potential to help affordability. But what you have to do, I think, is really look at the question of how it's deployed and how it interacts in the broader system. There are certain things that are just clearly wins. So anything that reduces system costs, anything that just reduces the need to do upgrades, anything that can put off the need to make certain, say, distribution side investments while accommodating some load growth. Anything that improves our ability to deliver on safety requirements at lower cost. These are things that are clear and obvious wins for affordability. Where it can be more complicated is where you're really looking at investments that might reduce certain customer costs, but maintain, certain levels of reliance on broader system goals. And then you've got to ask yourself, like, how do we really make that a win-win across the board, for the customer and for the overall system? Because that's kind of how we need to be delivering on the deployment of these technologies so that we can enhance affordability as we move forward. And I think there are definitely ways to do that. And there are things we need to just kind of be careful about and study and test and really understand as we move forward with the deployment of some of these technologies.
Josh?
Yeah, first of all, piece. Well, that's a good area for technology. It's some of those things going to be out of the scope of EPIC, but we've seen wildfire tech really take off. I did a wildfire tech town hall shortly after I started, and one of those companies is now a global leader, really in early detection of wildfires. And I have two bills on wildfires this year. One was already signed by the governor that really is around the bang for the buck for wildfire spend, and another one is still on the governor's desk, is around better coordination, as well as starting to implement some of the zone zero pieces that we've seen are necessary. So wildfires, as you said, is a huge contributor to costs and something that we have to address. We've been working on. I've certainly been working on in the legislature. I'll agree with what was said on this on the load flexibility piece. And we need to make sure we make load flexibility sexy next year in the legislature. And then, as I said earlier, these home level retrofits and all those technologies around that.
Great. Well, I'm going to ask one question of Mike, and then I'll open it up to anyone in the audience who'd like to pose a question. So, PG&E is, dealing with some huge challenges. Wildfire has been, kind of the defining issue of the last few years. But also some remarkable things happen. You're one of the largest gas utilities in the United States, but yet you've really embraced electrification boldly. And I want to share really one remarkable project which PG&E helped facilitate in Oakland, which is the first city in the US to fully electrify their school bus fleet. 74 buses, 74 chargers. And it's an interesting story. These buses are actually made in California, in Lancaster, 141 kilowatt hour pack. They go out and they do their route. They drop their kids off, and 100% of the kids going to school in a public school bus in Oakland are going electric. They're back and plugged into the grid by 4 o'clock, and they've typically used about 40 kilowatt hours in that route. So they have about 100 kilowatt hours, and they're feeding power back into the grid, which is right when our grid needs it, from 4 to, 8 or 9. And getting compensated. So it's the largest vehicle to grid project in the United States. And you guys are instrumental in that. And I just wonder if you could share a little bit about how did one of the largest gas utilities in the US come to this posture of being so pro electrification?
So great question. Interesting that you went with the school bus. So on the vehicle electrification side, I mean, part of this is our commitment to reaching the state's net zero goals and our net zero goals. And, you know, we've done studies internally to say, what's the lowest cost pathway to do it? Electrification is a low cost pathway. On school buses, on vehicles, we've done this for our fleet. I think what I'm happy with when we really kind of challenged ourselves and looked at the numbers is that it's the cost effective option. We still got stuff we got to go, but for 80% of our fleet, we still got to work on some of those heavy duty, you know, kind of bucket trucks to get that cost down. That's earlier stage. But for what we're thinking about and doing for our internal fleet electrification, it is the low cost, low carbon option. And then we're taking those learnings and working with school districts and others to help them figure out how to electrify their fleets. And the thing I love about the Oakland project, in addition to every kid in the Oakland Unified School District, if you're taking the bus, you're on an EV, but the bus drivers love it too. It's like just better. It's a better experience. You don't get the kind of diesel rumble. And so it's been a really cool, like not just for the grid, but it's also for the community. And so, yeah, why not?
It's an interesting point. You know, I spoke to a truck driver on one of my site visits recently who'd been driving on a semi truck in California for 30 years. And his last year was the first doing all electric. And he said, unquestionably, it's good for his health because the reduction in vibration and noise, not to mention pollution, but he said he just experiences less fatigue at the end of his shift. And I was very struck by that. Okay, well, let's open it up if there's any questions. Why don't we start over here? Ram, and just project. I don't think we have a mic, so just project.
And I think this question tells me why I came here, right? Very exciting because some of you know me, Arnab used to be a theory. And part of the strategy that we put together was around, part of the strategy we put together when we looked at the National Buildings Blueprint, we said demand flexibility has to be a core component of building decarb. But then what we went ahead and did was also, we did the original investments around the 120 volt equipment, the water heaters and the stows, Channing copper. And then we also had another large program around distribution deferrals using demand flexibility and energy efficiency. PG&E was one of the awardees. I don't think that one is ever going to see the light of day anymore. So the question is, how does that portfolio that we put together DOE around reducing the cost of distribution system upgrades and reducing the cost of upgrading electric equipment in homes, right? How do we continue that? Because I think at this point, Epic's pretty much the only game in town. But the question is, how do we continue all of that work that is not going to continue anymore? That is actually aimed right at the problems that we're talking about with electrification.
Yeah, so we got to take the playbook. We got to shop it to the 15 or 20 states that will listen, and we need to help them execute. Because I think when you're at DOE or you're at the CEC, you just assume that every state has a bunch of really smart state employees who can figure this out. I promise you, most states don't have this capacity. So part of what we've been doing is raising money with philanthropy and with other donors to sort of bring these ideas directly into their state houses and their governor's offices. And for now, I think that's the only way to really do it. But yeah, this is the primary example to take on that sort of mantra and that that research from DOE.
Well, it just kind of occurred to me, you know, you need people. And as a former venture capitalist, you always look at, you know, there's the market and the team, and we need great teams. And one of the most important pieces of all that is that there's, you know, people know there's going to be a consistent source of early stage funding, right? They may not get it this year, they may not get it next year, but the fact that Epic is out there, exists, and is going to exist well into the future if we do our jobs right, means that other entrepreneurs, teams will form, people will shoot for to create those startups that can get those grants in the future. So we need those people as entrepreneurs, and we also need those people inside of regulatory bodies, inside of our agencies, and in the legislature as well. And I think that's what one of the most biggest successes of Epic is, again, attracting great people to be entrepreneurs. And one of the greatest successes, I think, of California, and especially now as there's a retreat in the federal government, is that we can attract those incredible people to keep pushing clean energy forward and be the leader for the country and the world in some cases.
Maybe just I'll add, I think there's immense promise in load flexibility, and there's still work to be done. So if I step back and think about what are the big priorities, we have to make it cheaper. It's got to be more affordable than it is today. The load flexibility we have is often too expensive. Second, it needs to be more trustworthy. And what I mean by that is if my engineers, my operators and planners don't trust that the flexibility is going to be there when we need it to be there, what are they going to do? They're going to build around it. And then we're going to have our customers double paying. So they pay for the flexibility and then they pay for the grid upgrades because the resource wasn't trustworthy, it wasn't reliable, it wasn't performing when we needed it to perform. And that gets to the last one I'll say is we need the flexibility to also be adaptable. And so that it needs to be able to adapt to different circumstances, because there's one thing that we know for sure is that we're going to be wrong about our projections. We're operating in a world of high uncertainty here. And so whatever the projection was we had of, we're going to need a distribution deferral on this specific feeder in 10 years, it's going to be wrong. We know that. And so what we need to be able to do is adapt those resources to provide other services, either because it came sooner and we got to do something there, or we can deploy it for a generation constraint. And so those are the things that we're focused on as we look to the future. I think that's a great area that we're focused in innovating around.
Great. Anything else? Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing because I got to rebut this a little bit. So, I hear you on that, but, we're talking about increasing load factor here from 40% to 60%. And I think anything that we're talking about from a flexibility standpoint would still build in the redundancies needed for you guys to meet your reliability targets. So I think we do need to figure it out, but I don't think we're making the assumption or the assertion that we should use things to 100% capacity and then not have room for unforeseen circumstances. So that's all.
Okay, let's go to you for a good. You want to stand up? That'd be great.
The one tool that I didn't hear you talking about so much, but I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Douglas and PG&E and utilities on is flexible pricing. And we build in these incentives through flexible prices that any amount of devices on the load flex side. Thank you. So I don't have affordable flexibility that's firm. Why don't we do like the broader wholesale market and offer more flexible prices? So as an ASP and participant in PG&E and SCE's programs, to me, that seems like one really large lever that we have, whether it's building controls or distribution automation. There are lots of low-cost controls-based ways when paired with price that we can get cheap flexibility. Could you talk a little bit about those types of programs?
I'll just say simply, I would include time of use rates or rate structures as a part of load flexibility. This is more of a technology discussion, but I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and we have a number of pilots going right now trying to test, time of use, dynamic price signals. The one thing I would offer that we need to continue to explore is whether that's the right answer for distribution constraints and transmission even to some extent as well. So it works great on the generation side, the bulk supply side. When we start to get to the distribution system, that's really more of a theory of limits and constraints. And so it's either sufficient or insufficient. And so a dynamic price signal may not be the right answer there. I think that's one that we need to continue to explore, pilot, do some of our, evaluation of to figure out what the best lowest cost answer is for customers.
Just add a couple things. not all customers are situated in a place where they're really able to effectively respond to price signals. And so we have to be careful about equity impacts. We have to understand that there's an educational side of even knowing that the rates are structured that way, let alone having the ability and the technology in the home that might allow them to flex their use enough to really offset the impact of those rates. So there's a issue potentially around customer classes, around the level of appliances and technology in, for example, a home or a building. And you may find yourself with issues between building owners and tenants, where even if somebody is aware of some of these opportunities, they may not yet have access to them. So we definitely see a lot of importance in pricing as a way of helping shape behavior, but it definitely also is going to require some more work and some more time as pricing is integrated with other strategies.
All right, I think we got time for one last question.
Thank you so much for all the feedback. So Paul Stith, I'm with Critical Loop. I kind of a new role helping with our market development. I'm not hearing so much here about energization timelines, and kind of wanted to see what you all are thinking, because when we talk to utilities across the country, and particularly public utilities, they don't have DERMS yet. They don't have fancy mapping. They don't have so many things, but a customer has a load limit letter rejection in their hand, and we firmly believe we can do a lot for them just with that letter. So I wanted to hear public utilities, how can they benefit and move forward faster in the state? Maybe a pay it forward program for them from Epic, don't know. And then energization timelines. How do we just do some simple things fast?
I'll just put the timelines piece. I did it several years ago, SB 410, and PG&E basically cleared a lot of that backlog. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I'll comment on a couple pieces there. So one is we do have a DERM system. And so we have that here. And we have what we call our Flex Connect program, so that when we provide those traditional load limit letters, sometimes the answer can be no. And we don't want the answer to be no, you can't connect right away. How can we then do something better than that? And one of the things when we do the analysis, often we find that we can get customers connected for the power that they want as soon as they want it, if they can do a little bit of management on a couple days a year. And we've done that with EV fleet in Fresno, Pepsi fleet there, and that's been working well. We've been working with other customers on that. We've been doing that. And then the other thing that I'd add is, yeah, we're focused on this. I focus specifically on the EV side quite a bit. We get together with the team every week to focus on the large EV connections that are coming. And so the good news is that we continue to see growth. 2 years ago, we connected, I think it was something like around 40 or 50 sites. This year, we're on track to get to almost about 200 new sites in our territory that are like the EV Go's, the Tesla superchargers. And it takes like we're to the point now where we've cleared the backlog of customers asking, and now we're working on new muscle to help customers get their work done as quickly as possible. Make sure you've got your equipment, your easements, those type of things. So we're flipping that to in service of helping customers energize as quickly as they want when they want the power.
Okay, why don't we just do a round of closing comments, starting with you, Senator.
So for all of you here today, so a couple of things. One, as I did a bill a couple of years ago, that's to get our state government to net zero by 2035 for all of our fleets, all of our buildings, all of our electricity, 10 years ahead of our goal for the rest of the state. So that's ambitious goals. We need all these technologies for our state as well. I think I had one other quick thought. Yeah, I guess it's this, again, we have to use our existing grid more effectively. Most of the time, that's what became really clear to me this year. Most of the outside of about 40 hours a year, we're using about 45% of our grid's capacity. So that kind of underlies a lot of discussion we've had today. So all these technologies help us use our existing grid more effectively, get more load on the grid, and with that flexibility is going to bring down rates. So thank you all.
Mr.
Just looking forward to the rest of the day and appreciate everybody being here to be part of this discussion at the symposium.
I'll close on something a little different, and I think it's something that I know David and I think about a lot. If you work in this industry, it's a little bit of a tough time right now, and that's probably the understatement. And I think what I would say is back in 2017, 2018, when I was working at the utility and working on California stuff, I didn't know it at the time, but we were laying the groundwork for a lot of the great work that was then done in 21 and 22 that I was able to be a part of. So if you're working here right now on all these great programs, like there will be another shot. Like that is how this works. So we should keep moving forward.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I'll add. So I've been in California now for a little over 2 years, and a big reason I came was for the innovation that we do here. So for this role and for being in the utility industry, this is the place to focus on clean energy innovation, to focus on the greatest challenges that we have. It's here in California. And I'm so happy I came here, first of all. And second is as Arnab said, there are great challenges, but I would offer that when there are great challenges, it creates the gift of focus and the gift of us really prioritizing working so that some of the greatest companies came out of the toughest times. Some of the greatest innovations come out of that. And so this is a great opportunity for us to take the next step to continue to drive towards clean energy and do it in a way where we're driving costs down for utility customers, for all customers. And so that's the challenge ahead of us, and just got to unlock the brilliance of this room and the others that are online to make that happen. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, great way to finish. Will you join in giving our panel a big thank you?
We just give another round of applause to that fantastic panel. I think there were a lot of great themes there about validation and scalability, better products for consumers and the grid. And I think with that, we're going to transition over to our next segment, the Epic Action Reel. Every year, we ask our Epic grantees to submit short videos of 3 minutes or less to showcase here at the Epic Symposium. I think these are great opportunities to highlight some of the real world tangible benefits that were mentioned during the panel. And to kick off this segment, I would like to introduce Luam Tesfaye from the California Public Utilities Commission. She's the Director of Energy and Climate Policy. Luam.
Good morning, everyone. That was a fantastic panel and a really great way to kick off the day. I wanted to start by extending my thanks first to Jonah Steinbach, the director over these programs, for just the great relationship we've been able to build over the last few years, as well as Fritz for the invitation to speak today. So as Fritz mentioned, I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Energy and Climate Policy at the California Public Utilities Commission. And so in that role, I have the opportunity to oversee all of the energy work at the Public Utilities Commission, and in particular, the work that we do on the EPIC program and research and development. And I heard that Senator Becker mentioning the importance of having great teams, and we'll have a number of CPUC Energy Division staff here today, but I wanted to specifically acknowledge a few of our staff that are working on these research and development programs that are here today. And I'll ask them to raise their hand because they're here to engage with all of the participants here today. So we're joined today by Judith E. Clay, who's a program manager in the Energy Division, Cheryl Cox, who's a supervisor over our EPIC and other R&D and climate initiative programs, Fred Beck as well, and then Emma Maggiona Calda, who's here as well. So please find them today, get to know them, and tell them more about the work that you're doing. We're tracking everything closely and are very interested in engaging with participants today. So the CPUC's oversight over the EPIC program really gives us the opportunity to work with all of the EPIC program administrators. So of course, the California Energy Commission, but also Pacific Gas and Electric Company, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric, to really ensure that this key source and vital source of ratepayer funding for research and development is really strategically invested and is really guided by the California Public Utilities Commission's policies, and that those result in timely innovation and really have measurable benefits for ratepayers. Really appreciated how the last panel was emphasizing the importance of that connection between the work of the program administrators and the CPUC, but in particular, this issue of affordability and how innovation can help drive and make customer bills more affordable. California is really unique amongst states in its robust funding for research and development. Targeted innovation has the potential to spur the state's ability to achieve our ambitious climate goals while mitigating costs for customers and enhancing equity. And so I just really note some of the remarks from Commissioner Douglas in particular, and in response to the audience question about that, the importance of building that equity into opportunities like demand flexibility, given the different ranges of technologies available to customers right now. It really is our goal, as well as our challenge, to accelerate innovation and to demonstrate measurable and equitable results for EPIC investments through market adoption and grid deployment to really realize those meaningful benefits to ratepayers for their significant investment. We don't take that lightly. We realize that every customer on every electricity bill they're paying every month is contributing to the funding for these programs. EPIC's 5 strategic goals focus on the most challenging barriers and seek to produce innovative technologies and processes that can transform the market and have transformed the market and utility systems by scaling up and commercializing cost effectively. From transportation electrification to building decarbonization, achieving 100% net zero carbon emissions and the coordinated role of gas, distributed energy resources integration, and climate adaptation. In particular, innovation can have a key role in addressing the complex issues of electric affordability. I wanted to highlight that the CPUC last week put out our annual AB 67 report on electric costs, as well as our Senate Bill 695 report on rates. Both of these reports really highlight that the average electricity rates have generally outpaced inflation since 2019. Some of those drivers were discussed at the panel earlier today, related to wildfire mitigation as well as the impacts of net energy metering. And the CPUC really seeks to ensure that all ratepayers can benefit from those EPIC investments. And so we really appreciate the work of the CEC and the program administrators of putting that front and center. We want to make sure that no ratepayer, including frontline communities and tribes, are left behind. You will hear more on these topics at the Equity and Affordability plenary session later this morning, and I'm hoping everyone's ears are perked up for that session. We really must be nimble and expedient in leveraging innovation to address these challenges, which brings me to the exciting video reels that we have here today, which really illustrate research and technology solutions, as well as scientific practices that have been funded through the EPIC program. We'll see videos from community energy labs, MCE, Marin Clean Energy, One Cycle Control, Go Power EV, and the California Lighting and Technology Center. I just wanted to close by saying we are really looking forward to working with all of the EPIC administrators to promote the coordination with the CPUC's electric proceedings and to ensure alignment with ratepayer benefits. And so we look forward to engaging with all of you today and really appreciate the California Energy Commission for hosting this really important event and creating this ecosystem for all of us to get to know each other better and learn more about the innovation that we're working on. Thank you.
40% of global carbon emissions. 70% of that comes from energy use. So I feel very motivated to do something that can help existing buildings reduce their carbon impact now. When you look at K through 12 schools, energy is their second largest cost after labor. They spend more on energy than computers and textbooks combined. An elementary school might have 30 heating, ventilation, and air conditioning units. A middle school or a high school could have over 100 in some cases. When these all turn on at once in the morning, you get this huge spike of electricity, and that ends up costing those schools a lot in terms of demand charges. They have a lot of square footage to heat and cool, but they have very small maintenance and operation budgets. We've created technology that enables clean, all-electric, self-driving buildings. Our technology takes a quick and dirty physical model of a building and its thermal properties, how quickly it heats up or cools down, how heat is transferred through walls and windows. And with that understanding, it does something very unique. It can ensure that every zone or every room in a building is optimally comfortable at about 30% less energy cost than the alternatives. Our technology is the engineer. It learns those physical properties every 1 minute. It's looking at the energy consumption and the indoor air temperature in zones, and it's making tiny adjustments in every zone in the building all day long. The underlying technology that differentiates us is a machine learning algorithm that both generates the physics-based model and then uses that model to take control actions within a certain set of constraints. And so the constraints that we give it are, you need to keep this room optimally comfortable. That's usually defined by the customer, but let's say, let's keep this room between 70 and 74 degrees. And as long as you can guarantee that comfort, go ahead and figure out however else you're going to maximally reduce peak demand or energy cost. And it can respond to a real-time price. Our technology takes something that feels really hard to a lot of building operators, something that's complex, expensive, and very frustrating, which is new building performance laws, fewer people, less money, and the existing technologies are just, they're so expensive and they're so complicated to operate. This is a hands-off solution. It's low cost, it's easy to install, it's easy to interface with and understand, and it just does the thing. It saves time, money, and hassle. My name's Tanya Barham. I'm the CEO of Community Energy Labs.
Over the last 10 years, California has really accelerated in the amount of solar that we have on the grid, and that's really cleaned up the supply. But the downside is that it creates a bit of a problem in the evening when folks are coming home and doing laundry and making dinner, and there's a big demand on the grid. So a virtual power plant is a great way to address that issue where we have a mismatch between when power is produced and when power is needed.
Homes like this, with smart devices that are enrolled in a virtual power plant, are helping us achieve that mission. By shifting load out of the 4 to 9 p.m. peak times of the day, you're reducing the demand on the grid when peaker plants, largely fossil fuel, natural gas peaker plants, are coming online in those evening hours. If this home doesn't need to pull grid power during that time, instead, it's tapping into its battery, it's tapping into its solar power, it's tapping into its heat pump water heater. It's being flexible in when it can pull power from the grid. And in that way, we reduce the demand on the grid when carbon intensity is highest, helping MCE meet its mission to reduce fossil fuel emissions from our grid.
So RCF promotes social equity and revitalizes communities in several different ways. First of all, we do it through housing. And that's part of the work that we're here to celebrate today at this event. This home is one of 24 blighted abandoned homes that we've acquired, rehabbed, and put in state-of-the-art electrical features in order to really build affordability, not only for people when they purchase the home, but for maintaining the home going forward. And then we sell these to low and moderate income first-time home buyers. So we're promoting social equity and community building through our innovative social impact bond. This strategy has allowed us to raise private capital for public good.
So a virtual power plant is really a bridge to get California to where we are absorbing more renewable energy and unhooking from fossil fuels.
Dry, windy weather increases wildfire risk and can lead to public safety power shutoffs, or PSPS events. that leave thousands of customers without electricity for days. Fossil fuel generators used during these events are noisy, costly to operate, and degrade air quality. One Cycle Control, with support from the California Energy Commission, has developed the OCC Mobile Renewable Backup Generator, OCC Moorbug, to deliver renewable power during PSPS events and for other off-grid power needs. OCC Moorbug harvests solar and wind energy to deliver power without burning fuel. The rugged OCC Moorbug design enables transportation over rough terrain and resilience against harsh weather. 2 people can deploy OCC Moorbug in less than 60 minutes. The system includes a fixed roof-mounted photovoltaic array, 2 tilt-up wind turbines, and 4 foldable photovoltaic array wings. The roof PV array charges onboard batteries when system is stored, so that power can be immediately delivered to users upon arrival. Silicon carbide-enabled OCC power converters boost battery voltage and convert it to 60 Hz, 120, 208 volt power for off-grid use. An integrated display shows power generation, power consumption, battery state of charge, and battery temperature. 12 distribution boxes enable power delivery up to 300 feet in 2 directions. During PSPS events, OCC Moorbug can be deployed to power critical loads such as lighting, refrigerators, and electronics for areas including cul-de-sacs, critical infrastructure, businesses, and more. Beyond PSPS events, OCC Moorbug can be used by utility companies during disaster response or electrical system maintenance, and by generator rental services for outdoor events, concerts, and more. Compared to fuel-powered generators that require frequent refueling and maintenance, OCC Moorbug provides low-maintenance power for prolonged periods of time, with less noise and no refueling. 2 people can dismantle and store OCC Moorbug in less than 60 minutes. The trailer includes convenient storage for wind turbines, foldable solar arrays, and distribution boxes. OCC Moorbug can support critical electricity needs of communities during grid outages while reducing noise, operating costs, and fossil fuel consumption.
Those are some terrific videos, and I think they really go to show the diversity of projects and technologies, as well as issues that EPIC is trying to solve, provide some solutions to. Just want to give a huge thanks to our EPIC grantees for submitting that. And for those keeping count, we do have 2 more videos to show later in the day. Those will be shown after we reconvene after lunch and then for our final plenary. I would like to now introduce or invite to the stage CEC Commissioner Noemi Gallardo, who, among other issue areas, is the lead on energy equity and environmental justice. She will be moderating our next panel focused on improving energy affordability and lowering barriers to clean energy. I see they're taking a little photo up there, and they'll be up on the stage.
Sorry for the delay. There was paparazzi over there in the corner trying to get us. Well, buenos dias. Good morning. Can I get a good morning? Yes, yes, yes. This is a special time. It's Latino Heritage Month. It's also our Epic Symposium Day. Happy Epic Symposium Day, everybody. Yeah, let's woohoo that. Woohoo! We got to celebrate whatever we can these days, right? Because we get a lot of bad news out there. So I'm Gallardo. I'm one of the 5 commissioners. Today, I am honored to be the moderator for this plenary session, especially because of all the all-stars we have on this panel. Patrick Veruza from PG&E, Jenny Lowe from Build It Green, Doug Davenport from Prospect Silicon Valley, and Agatha Kazdan from EPRI. Our focus is improving affordability and lowering barriers to clean energy. And it does seem like everyone is talking about affordability these days, not just in California, but throughout the country. And in the clean energy sector, affordability often comes up when we're talking about our goal to electrify everything. So we have our panelists here who will be sharing practical solutions they're creating and applying to removing barriers for the electrification of transportation and also residential buildings. In particular, when it comes to the limitations of home and utility infrastructure when adding new electric loads. Panel replacements, for example, typically cost thousands of dollars and take weeks or even months to install. And then significantly increasing peak home electrical demand can result in a need for expanded utility infrastructure, which is a cost to ratepayers. All of this is particularly challenging for low-income and vulnerable communities that could benefit most from these solutions, yet are the most impacted by increasing costs. That is why we must shift the perspective industry-wide to consider power-efficient design, also known as PD, and current energy efficiency approaches as well. We must note too that while technologies and home electrification strategies exist to adopt power-efficient design, they are rarely used due to a lack of familiarity for the folks on the ground, like electricians, code authorities, and home occupants. So let's get started to learn how EPIC-funded technologies and planning tools are improving electrification installations and removing barriers. So we'll start out with introductions. Our panelists will each introduce themselves briefly. You can give your name, organization, talk a little bit about your project to help provide some context for the audience. And if it applies, please also include any statement about outreach and engagement you're doing with the community or any feedback loops that you may have with the industry, building officials, etc. All right, so why don't we start over on this side? Patrick?
Hello. Hi, everyone. I am Patrick Baruzza. I'm a product manager with PG&E's Grid Research, Innovation, and Development team. We are building and deploying our EPIC 4.02 project, really focused on helping customers connect, electrify their homes, add EVs without facing those upgrade costs of further home panel or the grid side equipment. So a lot more to share about that, but yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
All right, we'll go next to Doug. Let's see.
There you go. Great.
Now it's green.
Now
Now you can
yeah.
hear me. Okay, good. In my defense, there was a light on. Okay, anyway, so I'm Doug Davenport, CEO of Prospect Silicon Valley. We do a number of things. I'll just keep it brief. What we're focused on this morning are a couple of projects that we're doing on addressing both capacity and load management capabilities for apartments specifically. We'll get more into the details of that, but we're really grateful to the Energy Commission for the opportunity to do this, and I'll be sharing a little bit more.
Hi, mine is on. Hi, I'm Jenny Lowe. I work under Build It Green as the Senior Program Manager of the Power Group, which is a growing network of 200 plus collaborators working to transform how to electrify home by making, as was shared earlier, power efficient design be the norm and the practice in residential electrification. And the project that I am helping to lead is a CEC grant project on developing an online-friendly tool to electrify homes, especially single-family homes with limited electrical panel capacity, especially for those that are 100 amps and lower. And this tool, which we're calling the Home Power Planner, will take the lift of handling the NEC load calculations, the relevant ones, and selecting the power-efficient appliances and load controls, just to make it more straightforward for homeowners to be able to choose a cost-effective pathway when they electrify. For the community engagement in our project team, we have, am I supposed to continue on? Sorry, this was short, so I wasn't sure if I should continue.
You can.
Okay, thank you. In our project team, we have a community-based organization, CCAC, the Central California Asthma Collaborative, who is a CBL that works with low-income and disadvantaged communities in the San Joaquin Valley. And from CCAC's involvement in our team, considerations of these communities and households where English is their first language is integrated and woven into our project planning as well as our design. Also, CCAC led our project to set up a community-based a community advisory board to bring in other community organizations across the state to provide guidance through our project. On the technical front for the feedback loop, we're also leaning on our technical advisory committee, the power group that I mentioned earlier, and software stakeholders group to also provide the technical support and feedback loop.
Hi, everyone. My name is Agatha Caston. I'm with the Electric Power Research Institute, where I work on equitable building decarbonization and program design initiatives and research. And I'm really excited to talk today about a multi-year EPIC project in which we worked with the US's top volume producers of manufactured housing on 3 all-electric zero net energy prototypes that were designed to be cost-effective and scalable. Manufactured housing is the largest source of unsubsidized affordable housing in the country. And we wanted to work with the producers in order to leverage the production efficiencies to help to drive down the costs of achieving decarbonization and to learn from them and to work together on solutions to make decarbonization more broadly accessible. So we designed these prototypes to have low life cycle costs while preserving that low first cost. And these homes meet Title 24 despite regulatory exclusions. They meet DOE's Zero Energy Ready Home. They're also wildfire resilient, and they've been operating in the field for 2 years. They're occupied in low-income communities, in dry, hot, inland communities on 100 amp electric service. So now with this good data we have a lot of performance data and resident feedback and some insights to comment on how we can right-size these strategies for scale. So I'll talk about that.
Excellent. Looking forward to hearing more about all of what you're doing here. So we have a question. I'm going to start out with a question for everyone. It's the same question. And then after that, I'll ask specific questions to each of the panelists. So what comes to mind when you think about making electrification more equitable and accessible? I'm excited to hear your ideas because sometimes we talk about these concepts and they're very generalized and folks have different definitions for what these things are. So again, what comes to mind when you think about making electrification more equitable and accessible? Patrick, do you want to give it a try?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when we are looking at a very diverse and expansive territory like PG&E's world is, and what we really need to drill down on is getting laser focus on understanding what the barriers are to, the whole span of customers we have and why people are thinking about electrification, why they aren't electrifying, and then really drilling in on solutions that can be a perfect match for those. So it's not going to be a one size fits all by all means. But for instance, understanding, hey, is it just not understanding what the options are? Is it confusion of, is this the right solution for me? Or is it really coming down to just uncertainty and hesitation about the large costs that currently exist, and being clear on what those pain points are, being clear on what the exact barrier is allows us to be much more effective when we are trying to eliminate those. So again, if it's high cost of electricity, we can focus on that, which we very much are. If it's high cost of the EVs or the devices themselves, it helps us be clear on it. But trying to throw single solutions at a very expansive and diverse population isn't going to work. And you kind of have to be honest of understanding customers' perspective as opposed to giving them things that we assume is going to fix their problem. So I think that being close to the customers and hearing precisely what is holding them up, that lets us be a little bit better at targeting that equity and affordability challenge.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think equity, it's like the opposite of one size fits all. It's about customization and making sure it's from the perspective, the value from the perspective of that person. So no, you said it and summarizing. All right, Doug, what about you?
Okay, so let me answer this from a slightly different angle. So who all remembers when we were all talking about smart cities and autonomous vehicles? You remember by now, none of us were going to own cars. Our children would never have driver's licenses. There would not be insurance. And we would just be carted around by robots, all of us. How many came by robot today? Nobody? Okay, so one person came, we want to talk to you. So in that time, I was very deeply in the smart cities space. And the thing that really, frankly, offended me is you'd see these images of these very good looking people in some autonomous car working on their PowerPoint presentation on their way to their $1 billion deal. And it was like, well, these people would never invite me to their party. And not only did that offend me, but it's the idea that somehow this technology would really be the most benefiting the wealthy. And the thought of people who really need mobility were not in that picture. And frankly, that really bothered me. So when we look at that kind of idea, I think there can't be two classes of solution. If we think of equity as, well, this is good for those who can afford it and this is good for everybody else, that doesn't really work for me. So we think of equity in terms of how a solution can serve everyone, regardless of the level of investment required, the price point, the cost constraints, and otherwise, and how can you scale that idea to work for folks in a varying, degree of, economic station, right? So I think of equity in terms of the solution really needs to work across the spectrum. Let's not create tide pools here.
Jenny, you want to go next?
I think my answer is probably going to be in the space of single family homes, just because that's where our project is centered at. I just want to recognize that just because multifamily mobile homes, there are just a lot of complex problems and issues to work through with that. So my answer may not be able to be relevant across, as like the prior speakers have been saying, just this is a complex space and solutions should be geared towards those specific stakeholders. So for single family homes, I'm just thinking just reducing the complexity of it all. So you don't have to be a technical expert. You don't have to have the right connections to know how to move forward to electrify your homes, because sometimes just not knowing where to start is one of the issues. And also just reducing the barriers itself for like the time and the cost to electrify. Will just make it easier for people who don't have the resources, who may not know how to approach it, to kind of like want to take it on, because it doesn't seem like such a huge project. So that's how I'm thinking of it.
Great, I get that.
Yeah, just to echo some of the comments already made, I think equitable electrification means that regardless of income, geography, infrastructure constraints, you're eligible to receive these innovations and these benefits. And I just want to highlight, a testimonial from one of the prototypes that we developed that's now occupied. This resident went from paying over $500 per month in his previous home to net zero annually. That kind of savings isn't just helpful when you're making $35,000 per year. That's transformative. And so I think that's what we're hearing. And with manufactured housing, and it's not manufacturing housing alone in this state, the on the ground reality is that the electrical service is 50 to 100 amps. And these residents, almost exclusively low income, have high energy burdens. Manufactured homes are more expensive to operate. They're less efficient. And so to avoid costly service upgrades, we tried two approaches. One, with the 3 homes, one is we adhered to a strict economy of wattages exclusively. We used 120 volt heat pumps, low amperage appliances, envelope efficiency, et cetera. We kept it really simple. And then on the other 2 homes, we employed smart load management. We used smart panels. Specifically, these sequence and limit loads. They optimize the use of on-site renewables. They avoid peak pricing periods, et cetera. We also, again, going back to those production efficiencies that you find in the factory, we factory installed heat pumps and solar so that we could reduce the site labor and ultimately the costs of the technologies going in. So those are some of the approaches we took.
Excellent. And I think overall what I'm hearing is if you remove barriers for those most in need, when you're thinking about those needs, then you're going to help solve problems for all of us. All of us will benefit. And that's what I was hearing from you too, as well, Doug and Jenny. So excellent. Thank you for that. Now we'll start with the specific questions. So Patrick, you're up first. What role do technology solutions like EPIC 4.02 play in supporting customer electrification?
Yeah, that's a great question. That gives me a chance to explain a little bit about what we're actually trying to do. So, Mike Delaney gave a nice sneak peek of what we're talking about here earlier. We're really looking at this as a technology solution that lets us unlock this problem, solve this problem where customers are trying to add a EV, add a heat pump, add these other electric loads, but they're coming into these real constraints that their home electric panel is 100 amps or undersized for their situation. And they bump into this and they say, hey, that's going to cost me thousands of dollars to upgrade. And then if they get past that challenge, then they turn around and bump into another cost from the utility, from PG&E, of saying, okay, you are down the street, your power line's underground, is undersized for all that load. You would have to also support and share some of that cost as well. So if you are just trying to electrify, why would you in that situation? It is an extremely high barrier to entry. And really what we're trying to do with this technology solution is look at why that problem exists and then be able to provide a mechanism that eliminates it. And how we do that is this new generation of AMI 2.0 smart meters. These smart meters have the capabilities of a modern iPhone, a modern smart device that can talk and connect to Wi-Fi. It can run software applications. And this first opportunity, this first platform, gives us a way to run software that can connect and control the load in EV chargers, and downstream it can connect to other smart devices as well. But essentially what that means is that a customer with a 100 amp panel with something undersized can add that level 2 charger and have the software in place that allows the customer to turn on their electric stove, turn on all their other loads, plug in their EV, and if they don't have the available capacity in that very moment, the EV charging rate can be throttled and adjust slightly like a dimmer switch. Essentially, customer can go home, plug in their stuff, make dinner. Maybe they plug in their EV and it charges a little bit slower for 30 minutes, but then they turn off their dryer, they finish, dinner, and then the EV ramps back up behind the scenes. Customer doesn't ever have to think about, flipping switches or whatnot. They wake up, car is fully charged, and it allows them to unlock the lifestyle, the standard of living that they want without having to be burdened or kind of consumed with this challenge of being load constrained. So unlocking that as a dynamic kind of load flexibility gives them the access to the electric devices that they want. It also allows them to avoid those bills that were otherwise stay in the way of them adding that load. So we're really excited by that. But what really is a double benefit is that not only does it solve that acute problem a customer faces when they're just trying to live their lives and electrify, it then also gives PG&E a way to look at why we are upgrading the system. And if we are upgrading the system just to accommodate that one customer who's electrifying and might be peaking for 2 hours of the year where their transformer is slightly overloaded, we have this new mechanism that lets us put in hard limits and force this load flexibility, this dynamic load management, where we now can connect that customer and we don't have to do that upgrade. So right there is, can be up to, $80,000 of cost savings for PG&E, which all goes down into a smarter way to connect electric load, but without installing additional poles, wires, and transformers that would otherwise balloon into high costs. So not only are we solving the acute problem for the customer, but we also are unlocking cost savings that inevitably also translate into lower electric bills down the line. So it's kind of coming at it two approaches there, but really on this core load management platform.
That's excellent. And what stage is the project in, and are you scaling or planning to scale?
Yes. We've been working on this for a little while now, and we're getting right to the point of deploying these in earnest. So essentially, because it is a technology solution, this thing didn't exist. We have been working for the last year and change of developing that and getting that smart meter kind of ready to go into the field, and then also building that software that actually does the smart load management behind the scenes. So that has been going through the pipeline of development, testing, proving it out in small deployments. So we have a couple test cases in the lab, and then we also have one kind of demonstration case in the field that shows, hey, you can connect a customer. They now get an EV charging rate that unlocks a huge savings for them. But then also allowed us to prove out and make sure we understand how the technology works. all those learnings, all those iterations of the product, all those customer interviews that we're doing to make sure we are solving the problem we want to solve and, really fixes the situation for the customer. That is leading into our feature plans in November and December. So really coming up to put these out in our first kind of beta demonstration to show, yes, we can deploy these, it can connect, it can solve those problems. And then again, the feedback loop there is that those learnings would help us put these in the field in much larger quantities and throughout the 2026 timeframe. So it's been a long time coming, but we're really getting ready to start these and really looking out for, okay, what are the channels we're going to be pursuing that will help us scale? So yes, it's, hey, we can target and talk to our customers directly, but what we're really excited about is looking at where these problems are originating from. So whether it be customers' interactions with their electricians, and the electricians are saying, hey, I have all these panel upgrades and, steering customers away because they don't want to pay thousands of dollars. That is an opportunity where we can give someone a tool that helps them serve more customers, and it helps us kind of get the word out a bit. So there's several channels like that we can get into more, but we're really excited about kind of going beyond just let's post something on our website and hope people find it.
That's wonderful to hear. And I have my fingers crossed that you'll have smooth deployment. We'll be learning a lot more soon. Excellent. Next, Jenny, you ready for some questions?
Yes.
All right. So as you mentioned earlier, you are developing a tool that can assist property owners to assess different pathways to electrify their homes without upsizing their panel. So how will the tool provide cost-effective solutions to households with limited financial resources?
So I just want to start out to say that our project is probably only 20% complete of the entirety of this timeline. I just want to set the context for that, because it's a 4-year-long project. We are just starting since the beginning of this year. So the actual definition of what is cost effectiveness, especially for a tool, we're still trying to define at this stage. Like presently, we want to definitely account for the upfront cost. So just the cost of comparing if you were to proceed with a panel replacement along with a service line upsizing of just increasing that capacity. And as was shared before, that's usually $1,000 to upwards of like $30,000. So you have that upfront cost. Then comparing that to if you were to remain on your existing panel and you're employing the various power efficient strategies of going on low power appliances, combination appliances, using smart splitters, smart pausers, smart panels, like what are the costs of those installations and replacement cost, and just comparing that to see which direction should they be going for. That at least is going to be part of the cost effectiveness consideration. The other part is alongside the development of the tool, we are also doing a field study to see how well does the solutions in the tool kind of like works out in the real world. So we will be employing the solutions of the tool in 50 single-family homes across all the 3 LU territories in California, and seeing just like, how are these technologies performing? How are they measuring up? Are people satisfied with them in their homes? So in that field study portion, we will be taking into account the bill impacts of if you were to transition from gas to electricity, what happens to customers' bills? Will it increase? Will it stay the same? Will it be reduced? And we will be seeing is there a possibility for integrating that into the tool itself, because that is very complicated from what everyone talks about, because the rates differs, incentives differs, and so we'll see if there is a broad stroke we can integrate that into the tool from the field study portion. But the other part is that our tool, we're kind of developing it so it can be modular. And what I'm saying by it's modular is that we want other software tools and other developers to integrate either the whole tool or pieces of the tool, like some of the analysis or the tables that we're using, into their own tools. And there are tools out there already that have advanced financial calculations and take into account all the different incentives that have changed, especially this year. A lot of the incentives have changed, and trying to integrate it into their tools so that not just our tools, but more tools out there are able to let folks electrify and avoid panel upgrades as much as possible.
Excellent. And you talked about getting data to improve the tool. You also talked earlier about the community engagement you'll be doing. I'm curious how you'll incorporate that information you're getting from the community to either help implement the tool or improve the tool as you go on.
We are definitely getting the community engagement for helping to implement the tool because there's going to be the design and just like the rollout into communities. So how to do that while considering all the difficulties those communities are handling and holding and how to communicate that in a way that connects with them. That is definitely one way. And also for the tool, I think I shared earlier, we want it to be user-friendly and not so onerous that's like, does it mean? So we want to have the community engagement, especially in this part, to inform like that usability of just how easy is it for people to use the tool. So the presentation of information, how to process the solutions that are coming up, because our research has been showing that the solution pathways that are provided, like the top ones, there's like 10% within the cost of each other. So it's not that different, but how people choose which solution pathway they go to may be very impactful for their livelihoods. For instance, if you have a circuit pauser, if you may not be a person that wants, your dryer pause while your EV is charging. If that's too kind of like too much a behavior shift, then maybe going to a smart panel may be easier. So, or maybe if you're cool with having 120 volt heat pump dryer, it may take a little bit longer, but at least it continues working. So just like the selection of just like which pathways to move forward to will be helpful to kind of like get their input and their evaluation for that.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, we'll move to Doug now. So Doug, your project aims to provide more electrification pathways in low-income multifamily buildings. What are some of the barriers or challenges in trying to convince housing developers to adopt all electric? And how are you addressing these barriers in this project? And if you want to also add this, which ones do you see as being the most promising?
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about my project. But first, we have to talk about some numbers. Actually, before that, I want to acknowledge two people. One, Sean Dory, nice to see you. He's also the man with the time paddle. You'll see him later. And also, I don't know if Akruti Gupta is here. Maybe not. She's another agreement manager with the EPIC program. We're actually operating under two different EPIC grants. One working on a program called PEASR. Or PEASR, depending on who you are, and another one that's actually focused on virtual power plants, in which we are a small task with the following idea. So some numbers for you. Your numbers may vary. Roughly about 13.5 million housing units in the state of California. Okay. About 4 million or so by recent count are multifamily units. Okay. So that's pretty good. And the number proportion is increasing very rapidly because there's a lot more multifamily being built than single family homes now. So here's the thing, in that 4 million housing unit picture, there's about possibly 2.5 to 3 million multifamily units that have a little teeny bitty little electrical panel, 60 amps or less, could be 40. So that's, if you think about it, when you're looking at electrifying multifamily buildings that are not new and don't have that 100 amp system or otherwise, that's 2.5, 3 million panel upgrades. That's 2.5, 3 million permit processes. That's 2.5, 3 million people displacements to get this work done. That could take a very long time, can be incredibly expensive. And frankly, I think we're all trying to say that's unnecessary. So the way that we approach it is kind of different. We're taking a technology approach. Now, I just told you, 2.5, 3 million multifamily units have old panels. That is not exclusively disadvantaged communities or low middle income at all. This is a far more pervasive issue. So it really runs the whole spectrum. If you're looking to electrify those housing buildings, you can run into serious capacity constraints, right? And we went, well, wait a minute. So a few of us were thinking about this and we kept thinking, how are we going to solve the capacity problem? What are interesting ways we can deal with the capacity problem and deal with or take advantage of the opportunity that storage is becoming much more economical? Said, okay, let's look at this. And then something happened. We said, hey, wait a minute, we can take smart panels that you can normally install in a single family home. As a matter of fact, the ones we're working on, you can go buy at Home Depot. Couple that with a lightweight battery that you could normally put in your garage if you have one. I don't. I live in a 125-year-old house in Berkeley and nobody has garages. So, but you could do that if you live in Santa Clara or someplace like that. We're taking that setup, we're placing that in apartments. Okay, so we're either replacing that 60 amp panel or we're augmenting that 60 amp panel to now provide additional capacity that's from the benefit of the battery. And then we can do other things. Now, okay, I could be showing you diagrams and flow charts and all that. Come to Greenbuild in a month and we can talk in that. But let me try to do this verbally. One, we're then able to provide additional capacity that can effectively deal with those times when additional capacity is needed, when you now have heat pump water heater, heat pump HVAC, inductive cooking, and all sorts of other things, right? So we have to look at that. But now that we've done that, we've got a couple of other opportunities we think are really cool. One, using that same system, but with a controls overlay, and I want to call this is, fairly straightforward additional controls, kind of like automating the use of an app. This was brought to us by our partner, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. Really great interaction with this particular smart panel. We can now start to manage the power output, or I should say, manage the usage of the electricity within the constrained condition, and not only help manage within that envelope, but actually do things like automated demand response at the apartment level. And that's really cool. You can start to automate, and I'm told 10 minutes, I have to hurry. You're also automating the ability to kind of manage circuits within that home and save the renter money on their power bill, right? Beyond that, you've got a battery. So now you've got resilience that can be customized to that particular renter so they can stay in their home in a grid event. And we're trying, because we can manage the output and because we have this storage supply, we want to see if we can extend the life of that backup power as long as we possibly can. People cringe when I say I want to see if we can do it for 5 days, but that's what we're trying to do. Put an apartment into emergency mode, employ these tools to actually enable people to be able to stay in their homes in grid events, emergencies, fires, other things along those lines. Fire adjacent, I should be very clear. But that's what we're trying to do, right? What was your second question? I'm going to be fast, Sean, I promise you. What was your second question? So we're going after the capacity problem because we see that it is a huge issue in the housing stock, right? So we're looking at that because we think if you can address that problem, like I was just kind of trying to illustrate, you can bring additional benefits and accrue those to the renter instead of it always being accrued to the building owner or being accrued to only the single family home owner. Right. So we think that's the thing that we're going after. We know there's a lot you could do, but we're kind of a ride or die organization. We chose this, and this is what we're working on.
Love it. I respect that. And you're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, which is really difficult to do. Right. We'll move over to Agatha. So your project's outreach includes informing HUD and other regulatory bodies about your findings and learnings. What are the future steps to advance electrification and affordability in manufactured homes?
Thanks for that question. One of the things that was triggered when I was listening to the responses is you asked about feedback loops. Workforce training, one of our conclusions is that workforce training, especially on electrification and envelope measures is critical. But I want to also emphasize homeowner awareness and education. For the two homes that we had that didn't just rely on the strict economy of wattages, but employed some form of smart load management, we found that there were some incidents and, when they continue, they were still on 100 amps. And for example, I'm just going to give an example. One of the occupants, these again are low income households. They brought in like a secondhand old resistance dryer and they plugged it into one of the outlets. It triggered a safety shutdown and a power outage. So the smart panel's working in the field, but what we learned is that we needed to calibrate it and to communicate with that homeowner about their energy lifestyle and make some adjustments and calibrations. And so I would say in terms of feedback loop, that's been critical, especially for the smart load management demonstration homes. Beyond that, what I've learned from this segment, it's a very cost sensitive segment. If you can do it in manufactured housing, you can do it anywhere. You've got to avoid excessive cost complexity. Anywhere where there's a supply chain or warranty risk or uncertainty, it's unlikely to be adopted unless there's some supportive incentives or market frameworks out there that are going to promote adoption. And then with this sector, there's been a lot of success with upstream builder incentive programs like the Energy Star for Manufactured Homes programs. And what makes those successful is they offset that incremental cost and they offer very clear prescriptive options to achieve that higher standard. I think one takeaway from this project has also been the importance in clarifying those pathways in development of standardized packages. We need those readily available with supply chain solutions for HVAC, for envelope that get us to that Title 20, gradually increasing, Title 24 standard, now wildfire codes. These need to be very clear. So those are some of the things we've learned with our project.
Excellent. It does sound like you're learning a lot. And I'm curious, have other manufacturers adopted or applied any of these pathways or measures that you're talking about from your project?
Yeah. So our production partner was Clayton Homes. They're responsible for over half of the annual volume in the country. And they have actually, they adopted a model that was informed by this pilot. It's all electric, has high efficiency heat pumps and heat pump water heaters, increased insulation over like the code compliant minimum. And they've put out 36,000 of these homes since July of 2023. So it's really exciting. So all of the top 5 manufacturers participated in the design vetting process. So we were very focused on these solutions being cost effective and production friendly, and happy to share these specifications with anyone that's interested. I just wanted to highlight that the low wattage home was particularly popular. And it was really because it didn't require any major retooling of their production line. It was now, the manufacturers saw some value in load management for resilience and future-proofing their homes. But without the grant that we had available, I'm not sure that those solutions would have proceeded. That upfront cost hurdle would have been a major hurdle. Now, and this is where it comes to some recommendations I have for public funding, would be really focused on incentives and supportive market frameworks to make these types of solutions really financially viable and attractive. Ones that encourage peak shifting, ones that encourage, optimization of renewables, things along those lines.
That's great. And when you can get a collective together, think about solutions, I feel like that works out so much more. It's hard to do that sometimes. So congrats on that. All right. So we have a wrap-up question for each of you. And you could answer both or maybe one or the other. So it's, how can the solutions we discussed today be scaled up, or where can public funding be focused to help achieve this? So Agatha just gave a little bit on that public funding. So maybe we'll start with Patrick. So again, you could answer both if you can do that briefly, or one or the other. How can the solutions we discussed today be scaled up, or where can public funding be focused to help achieve this?
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. So I think one of the the core levers of scaling, and this might be a interesting angle on it, but within our org, and when we're looking at the solution space in general, we're able to see that we can do a lot of good when we have a solution that is tied to like specific value generation. And that could be value generation to the customer, it could be value generation to different departments at PG&E or elsewhere. And when we have that clear articulation of what this solution does and that there is a problem that is solving and it's not some kind of nebulous, far off solution without a problem, we're able to find the partners, we're able to find the empathy, the collaborators who are, scattered across the org and the industry to really support and be invested in this. And an example, for instance, is within our service planning department, the people who are on the front lines looking at customer applications to add these loads, they've been looking at the solution or the space and saying, hey, we have to tell customers that you're going to have to pay all this stuff. Then customers say, good to know, and then they disappear, and then we turn around and all the transformers are overloaded. So we have these instances where we know people are seeing the problems, and when we can show them that there's a reliable, high confidence solution that solves their problems, we then win another ally who can help us find mechanisms to scale it. So for instance, making sure that the people who are handling those applications have the solutions like Epic 4.02 or any other kind of technology solution in their toolbox. And that gives us just another kind of person on the field that helps us put this out there. So that's kind of one approach to scaling there that we found, really, really viable. On the public dollar side, similarly, when we're talking with whether it be cities or HJs or partners in the space that do either have their own funding or kind of tap into those pools, being able to show them and tell that story again, where it's like, these customers exist everywhere, they exist within your cities. We all are trying to find them solutions to help transition from gas, electrify. But here is a way that lets them make their dollars go farther. So they may have grants to electrify single family homes or apartments or whatnot. But if they're bumping into panel upgrades or these other costs that deplete their pools of money much faster, here again is an opportunity where we can partner and work with them, equip them with the solution where the public dollars can still go farther, but they don't get hurdled by these barriers that are spending down their reserves much faster. So again, this is another opportunity where we are able to put our solution in place that make their jobs and their opportunities and programs much more long lasting and effective.
Great. All right. We'll go to Jenny next, then Doug, then Agatha.
For scaling up the solutions, I think the key kind of role is just having the various stakeholders in this space just be aware of it, because I think it's been mentioned, it's just like there are so many people, like from like the homeowner to the contractors to the program implementers to the incentives, all of them has to kind of like work together in a way. So even if you have the solution, if one of them is not aware or is not like thinking that this is a pathway forward, then it kind of falls apart. Because even manufacturers are involved, because if they don't have the appliances, how can you put into the people's homes? So I feel like for the scaling up, it's just the communications and being able to connect the various people and just understand that this is the pathway forward for electrification. It doesn't have to be that complex, but avoiding panel upsizing, avoiding having service line increase is a benefit to the homeowner, to the manufacturers, to the utilities, to incentives, to program implementers, to contractors. Like everyone will have a benefit into this, and just understanding how and what their role is, I think will be helpful for that.
Doug?
Okay, I'm going to be fast, but I'm going to try to answer both questions. So everything we're doing in these pilots needs to, remember the panel before us that they talked about trust. So everything we do has to be translated to the industry. Now we've got 100 gatekeepers between us and what goes into a building, and we don't need to get into that right now. But what we put together as a result of this project, the design specifications become design guidance. We've got a use case for the technology. We have a case study of the projects themselves. We then translate those things into a package that builders can use and understand. It also includes an economic analysis of where do we stand today and where could this go. we're taking all of that and we're coupling it with a couple of things. One, our advisory committee includes just about every major CCA in municipal utility and IOU in the state of California. They all have contractor programs, designer programs, builder programs, building owner programs that we are linking into. So this information can get out there. It's incredibly important to us, and we're going to obsessively work to make sure that we are offering content, guest speaking roles, as well as our own training programs through a partnership that we have with an organization, DMG North, around decarbonizing buildings. So we're trying to create everything we're doing today and put it out there in a very palatable way for the design community, as well as the owner community, and then couple that with training. Lastly, the folks that are coming together on these projects to work with us do not go away at the end of the project. There is no, yay, we did it, maybe for 5 minutes, but they are now resources to, as I constantly say, the next 100 times this project can go. If you can couple that with continually engaging other storage companies or other smart panel companies and others to explain what we did, how we did it, and how this could be a benefit, the evolution of this solution can start to happen, and the economics can get better and better, right? We're going after the cost of an upgrade with a solution that provides a whole lot more. That's really tough, but we've decided we need to try to push that forward. Now, in terms of just use of public money, I'll just call up a couple of other folks that you should go look at. One, the gentleman in the back who's taking a picture of me is Sean Jarvie, CTO of Flow Environmental Systems, natural refrigerant heat pump. Vince Wong from Electric Fish will be on later this afternoon and might be in the room. They're both startups that are trying to bring something revolutionary to a market. We're partners to them in various ways, and we're partners to organizations like theirs to bring these technologies forward. The issue becomes you can do everything in the world to show that it works and provide the evidence and try to build trust. You still need investment. And in terms of public investment, I think that programs like Bridge, programs like RAMP are really great, but I would love to see personally a coordinated set of public investments alongside some well-vetted corporate venture, other kinds of capital investment that now have this very supportive path to move forward. That's what we're angling for when we do the work that we're doing.
Wonderful. I get that.
Yeah, so I think, kind of a role for public funding would be to address, the limited electrical capacity and to help to clarify and simplify pathways to adoption. And as mentioned before, I think smart load management is key. It's a key area for public funding to step in and really to prime the market towards, behaviors that ease grid strain, essentially. And then lastly, just again, focusing on what are the affordability and infrastructure constraints and building solutions within that. The solutions need to be informed by those constraints in order to be successful. So that would lastly be my recommendation. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that grand finale, let's give this panel a round of applause. And I'll personally say thank you for all the wonderful ideas and for your commitment to the communities and helping ensure we can remove as many barriers as possible. And we love being your partners. So thanks also for the ideas you shared.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Gallardo, Technical Project Leads, for that excellent panel highlighting a very important part of the EPIC investments, which is really lowering these barriers. With that now, I have a couple announcements to make as we head into a technology showcase viewing period. This is a dedicated time for until about 11:30 or so, and then into lunch, where we have various EPIC grantees, EPIC partners here on the first floor atrium. We strongly encourage you all to exchange business cards, say hello, learn, interact with their projects. A lot of them showed up very early this morning to set up, and yesterday as well, and so they have a lot of great information to share. I often say, especially with these technologies and devices, there's nothing better than interacting with it, seeing it, engaging with it, and then being able to share that with others. In terms of the lunch, some of you may have purchased a prepaid lunch option. You should have a sticker on your name badge. If you do not, please feel free to find us at the registration tables. We can help rectify that. Those stickers are aligned or accordingly with your lunch order. We'll have a little sign out there to help you identify that, and we also have some staff as well. The pickup for that will be around 11:30. It'll be near where the coffee area is. So have again, maybe about another 20-25 minutes before that comes out. For all the other folks, we have a list of restaurants off-site nearby. Those are tasty. Sacramento is an excellent food destination, so encourage you all to go check it out there. We also do have 2 on-site options between Jesse's Cafe and Buddha Bowls and Rolls. One is sort of a hot grill with burgers and sandwiches. The other one has various Asian rice bowls, noodle bowls, and banh mi sandwiches. We will be, lunch is an hour and 15 minutes, so we'll be reconvening at 12:45. All this information is also found on our Zoom events page, various signs around the atrium. And with that, I'll dismiss you all to go check out some of the technology vendors out in the atrium. And hopefully we'll see you back here at 12:45 for our next plenary on battery safety future proofing. Thanks, everyone.